Good evening and welcome to the State of Business on our television. I am Chavika Samarasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines. IMF lowers economic projections for Asia Pacific. Prime Minister calls for commitment on rural economic revival and food security program. News in detail. Growth in the Asia Pacific region is expected to slow in 2022 and 2023. This reflects headwinds from global financial tightening, the war in Ukraine, and the sharp slowdown of the Chinese economy.
This challenging conjuncture poses difficult trade-offs for policymakers, said the International Monetary Fund in its Regional Economic Outlook, Asia and the Pacific. The region faces three formidable headwinds, which may prove to be persistent. The first headwind is global financial tightening. The Federal Reserve has become more aggressive in tightening monetary policy as US inflation remains high. This has translated into tighter financial conditions for Asia. The second headwind is the war in Ukraine. The main impact on Asia has been higher commodity prices, which spiked following the invasion and have remained high. Most countries in Asia have seen a deterioration of their terms of trade. This has been an important factor behind currency depreciations so far this year. The third headwind is the sharp and uncharacteristic slowdown in China. The IMF has marked down Chinese growth for 2022 to 3.2%, reflecting the impact of zero-COVID lockdowns on mobility and the crisis in the real estate sector. This slowdown is estimated to have important spillovers to the rest of Asia through trade and financial links. The sharp bout of volatility in global commodity markets following the Russo-Ukrainian war put pressure on Asia's headline inflation in the first half of 2022. This increase has been driven by rising food and fuel prices, particularly in Asian, emerging market and developing economies, but also reflects higher core inflation as the region recovers.
Global energy crisis, triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, has the potential to hasten the transition to more sustainable and secure energy system. This is according to the latest edition of the International Energy Agency's World Energy Outlook.
Today's energy crisis is delivering a shock of unprecedented breadth and complexity. The largest impact is in the market for natural gas, coal and electricity, with significant turmoil necessitating 2 oil stock releases by IEA members. Energy markets remain extremely vulnerable, and the crisis is a reminder of the fragility and unsustainability of the current global energy system. The World Energy Outlook 2022 warns. The WEO's analysis finds scant evidence on claims from some quarters that climate policies and net zero commitments contributed to rising energy prices. Higher shares of renewables were correlated with lower electricity prices. More efficient homes and electrified heat have proved an important buffer for some consumers. The heaviest burden is falling on poor households, where a larger share of income is spent on energy. Alongside short-term measures to shield consumers from the impacts of the crisis, many governments are now taking longer-term steps. Some are seeking to increase or diversify oil and gas supplies, and many are looking to accelerate structural changes. In the WEO's stated policy scenario, these new measures help propel global clean energy investment to more than $2 trillion a year by 2030.
The sustainable energy sector, which supplies 13% of national demand, is being pushed towards bankruptcy. As the sector shutters its services, the nation will face prolonged and increasingly frequent interruptions in its power supply.
According to sector representatives, this is despite many reminders and requests with regard to settling dues, that at present stand around 35 billion rupees. It is claimed that even though there was an agreement to settle the dues, there has been no follow-through. Fees collected by the Ceylon Electricity Board from its customers for the supply of this energy yields very high profit as the grid receives it at far below the selling price. Despite this fact, the CEB chooses not to settle what it owes to sustainable energy suppliers. The collapse of the sector, at a time when the purchasing of fuel for power generation is creating a massive drain on the nation's forex reserves, will lead to serious power outages. It will also lead to increased unemployment and the loss of stakeholder investment. If these grievances are not settled, the sector will have no other alternative than to seek legal redress. Based on these facts, representatives of the sector requests that the relevant authorities arrive at an acceptable solution for this grave situation.
For this month, for 3 weeks, we didn't get a cent from CAB. So if they have promised 100 million per day, by tomorrow they should have given us 2.5 billion. 2.5 billion is not enough. We need 5 billion because tariff increase in place. The consumers are paying now. So we need immediate 5 billion, which they have promised.
Stay tuned. We will return after this commercial break. Welcome back. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena states that the Rural Economic Revival and Food Security Programme requires the direct contribution of all government officials. It sees as essential contributions from governors, provincial council officers and former public representatives for the success of the programme.
The Prime Minister emphasised this over a recent Zoom meeting with provincial governors regarding the Rural Economic Revival and Food Security Programme. As this programme is also expected to increase the income of rural communities, more attention is to be dedicated to the production of agricultural export crops specific to each province. This is expected to increase export income, thus the government is already taking steps to support farmers. The Prime Minister highlighted that more attention should be given towards developing the tourism sector at the provincial level. Steps are to be taken to develop tourist destinations and open tourism windows in each province. As many airlines are ready to recommence flights to Sri Lanka, they should go beyond traditional methods to increase foreign income. It is also important to get the support of the private sector, as more benefits can be obtained by working through an integrated development program in every sector. The Prime Minister also emphasized that the country has already embarked on an economic process that can win the trust of the international community by implementing programs to boost the economy at a national level.
The 11th session of the Assembly and the 15th session of the Council of the Global Green Growth Institute was held recently in Seoul, South Korea. At this event, a Sri Lankan was elected Vice President of the Assembly and Vice Chair of the Council of the Institute.
Dr. Anil Jaisinghe will serve in these two roles for 2 years in his capacity as the Secretary of Environment. Based in Seoul, the Institute is a treaty-based international intergovernmental organization with 44 members and over 20 countries and regional integration organizations. The Institute serves the role as enabler and facilitator for member countries' transition into a low-carbon green economy. The Institute is currently working very closely with the government on climate action as the delivery partner of a GCF readiness support project on strengthening capacity and institutions for implementing Sri Lanka's National Adaptation Plan. It is also facilitating the adoption of sustainable public transport services for low-carbon city development and strengthening sustainability of the tea industry. The Institute is also strengthening the government of Sri Lanka's capacity to access and mobilize innovative climate financing tools, a critical area of interest to the country.
In a celebration of over 70 years of US-Sri Lanka friendship, partnership and bilateral ties, the new US Embassy was officially opened recently. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, US Ambassador Julie Chan, and the US Department of State's Under-Secretary for Management, John Bass, officiated the opening.
The new embassy is situated on the existing expanded embassy site along the seafront in central Colombo and provides a secure, modern, sustainable and resilient platform for US diplomacy. The architecture and landscape of the new embassy were designed to embrace Sri Lanka's ecology, history and culture and are heavily informed by Colombo's tropical climate. The embassy's interior incorporates textures and patterns inspired by local culture, art and the surrounding gardens. A model of environmental stewardship, the new embassy was designed to reduce energy costs and greenhouse gas emissions while increasing security and augmenting renewable energy use. The project is registered with Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, a global green building certification program, and is on track to achieve silver certification. The new embassy also contains a permanent art collection that includes art in a variety of media by both US and Sri Lankan artists. Highlights include site-specific commissions of birds for Sri Lanka and a wall sculpture representing the atolls and coral life in the oceans. The Bureau of Overseas Building Operations spearheaded the construction, injecting roughly $90 million into the local economy.
Stay tuned for the stock update. Welcome back. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on negative notes today. The all-share price index dropped 126.44 points to close at 8,602.16, and the S&P SR20 dropped 51.84 points to close at 2,590.61. Turnover was 1 billion rupees and over 42 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all our news for today. For this and more, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. Take care and good night.